Nobody is going to tell you that being too nice is your problem. Your friends will not say it. Your family will not say it. The people who are quietly taking advantage of your agreeableness are absolutely not going to say it, because the system works perfectly for everyone except you. You say yes when you mean no, and nothing bad happens to them. You absorb other people's problems and carry them as your own, and they feel lighter while you feel heavier. You soften your truth to protect someone's feelings, and they walk away comfortable while you walk away compromised. And you have been doing this so long and so consistently that it has stopped feeling like a choice and started feeling like your personality, like who you are, like something that makes you good. But here is the psychological truth that the nicest people in the world need to hear the most. What you have been calling kindness is in many cases something else entirely. It is fear wearing kindness as a costume. And the cost of that fear dressed up as virtue is not just that people take you for granted. The cost is your ambition, your authenticity, your self-respect, and over time your entire sense of who you actually are underneath the performance of being agreeable. Today we are going into the dark and precise psychology of why being too nice is one of the most self-destructive patterns a person can develop. Why it backfires in every domain of life, from relationships to careers to your own mental health, and what the research actually shows about what creates genuine respect, genuine connection, and genuine success. Because the answer is not less kindness. It is a completely different kind of strength. First, you need to understand what excessive niceness actually is at the psychological level, because it is almost never what it appears to be on the surface. Psychologist Harriet Breicher, whose landmark research on the disease to please identified what she called compulsive niceness as a behavior pattern driven not primarily by genuine generosity or care, but by an overwhelming need to avoid disapproval, conflict, and rejection. The compulsively nice person is not asking themselves, how can I genuinely help this person? They are asking, how can I make sure this person does not think badly of me? How can I prevent this interaction from becoming uncomfortable? How can I make this person happy enough that they will not leave? The behavior looks identical from the outside, but the internal engine driving it is completely different. One comes from a place of genuine abundance and care. The other comes from a place of fear and scarcity. And the brain knows the difference, even when the behavior looks the same. Research on motivation and authentic behavior consistently shows that actions driven by fear of disapproval produce fundamentally different psychological outcomes than actions driven by genuine choice. When you help someone from genuine desire, it builds your sense of self and your energy. When you help someone because you are afraid of what happens if you do not, it depletes you. It builds resentment quietly in the background, and over time it erodes the very relationships it was designed to protect. The first domain where being too nice destroys you is professional, and it is more brutal than most people realize. Organizational psychologist Adam Grant at Wharton, whose extensive research on giving and taking in the workplace produced some of the most counterintuitive findings in modern organizational science, discovered something that challenges everything the nice guys finish last narrative suggests. The people who give the most in professional environments are simultaneously the most represented at the bottom of the success ladder and at the very top of it. The difference between the givers who thrive and the givers who get crushed is not how much they give. It is whether they give with boundaries. The givers at the bottom say yes to everything, protect everyone else's time while sacrificing their own, never advocate for their own needs, and are systematically underestimated and undervalued by the very people they have worked hardest to please. They are passed over for promotions not because they lack competence, but because they have never signaled through consistent self-advocacy and selective refusal that their time, expertise, and contribution have genuine value. Research on workplace perception shows that people who never say no are unconsciously perceived not as exceptionally generous, but as having no other options. Their agreeableness is read not as strength but as desperation. And desperation is never promoted. It is simply used until it is used up. The second domain where excessive niceness devastates you is in your closest personal relationships. And the mechanism here is psychologically dark and almost entirely invisible until the damage is already done. When you are consistently too nice in a relationship, you are not creating safety and warmth. You are creating an imbalance that corrodes the foundation of genuine connection over time. Here is why. Relationships require two real people. Two authentic presences with genuine needs, genuine preferences, genuine limits, and genuine reactions. When one person in a relationship consistently suppresses their authentic response to keep the peace, consistently agrees to avoid conflict, and consistently prioritizes the other person's comfort over their own honest experience, that relationship stops being between two real people. It becomes a performance, and the person receiving the performance, whether they consciously know it or not, begins to sense something is off. They begin to trust the nice person less, not more, because at some level they know they are not getting the truth. Research on relationship authenticity from clinical psychologist Dr. Jordan Peterson, whose work on personal responsibility and authentic engagement has reached millions, confirms that the most stable and deeply connected relationships are not the ones with the least conflict. They are the ones where both people feel safe enough to be genuinely honest, where disagreement is possible without the relationship collapsing. The conflict avoidance of the excessively nice person does not protect intimacy. It slowly suffocates it by making genuine encounter between two real people impossible. The third way excessive niceness destroys you is the one nobody wants to talk about because it sounds counterintuitive and almost cruel. Being too nice makes people respect you less, not more. And the psychology behind this is ancient and deeply wired into human social instincts. For hundreds of thousands of years of human social evolution, the people who agreed with everything, offered no resistance, and had no clear boundaries were not perceived as virtuous. They were perceived as low value, as having no internal resources worth protecting, as having nothing of their own that mattered enough to defend. Research on social dominance and status perception shows that humans unconsciously assign status based on behavioral signals that indicate a person has options, has standards, and is willing to enforce them. When you never push back, you signal that you have no standards worth enforcing. When you always accommodate, you signal that your time and energy have no particular value since you distribute them without discrimination. When you absorb mistreatment without response, you signal that the mistreatment did not cost the other person anything, and therefore will continue without consequence. Evolutionary psychologist David Buss, whose research on social status and mate selection spans decades, found that across cultures and contexts, the individuals who command the deepest respect are those who demonstrate clear values and the willingness to act in defense of them. Niceness that has no limit is not perceived as virtue. It is perceived as weakness, and while weakness may be tolerated, it is almost never respected. The fourth dark truth about excessive niceness is what it does to your identity over time, and this is perhaps the most psychologically devastating consequence of all. When you spend years suppressing your authentic responses to manage other people's emotions, you do not just lose individual moments of honesty, you gradually lose access to your own inner voice entirely. Psychologist Carl Rogers, whose person-centered therapy revolutionized how we understand psychological health, identified what he called conditions of worth as one of the primary sources of psychological damage. Conditions of worth develop when a child learns that love and approval are conditional on certain behaviors, on being pleasant, on not causing trouble, on keeping others comfortable. And the child who learns this lesson adapts by suppressing the parts of themselves that might threaten approval. Over years, this suppression becomes so habitual, so automatic, and so complete that the person loses genuine contact with their own needs, preferences, desires, and authentic reactions. They stop knowing what they actually think about things because they have spent so long performing what is acceptable to think. They stop knowing what they actually want because they have spent so long wanting what is safe to want. This is not a metaphor. This is a documented psychological process that produces what therapists call loss of self, and it is one of the most common underlying causes of depression, anxiety, and a pervasive sense of emptiness in people who on the surface appear to be doing everything right and making everyone around them happy while they quietly disappear. So what is the alternative? And this is where most conversations about being too nice go wrong, because they suggest the solution is simply to be less nice, to be more selfish, to stop caring what people think. None of that is right, and none of it will work because it is just swapping one extreme for another. The real answer is something psychologists call assertive compassion, and it is the behavioral profile of the people who are simultaneously the most genuinely liked, the most deeply respected, and the most authentically connected in every domain of their lives. Assertive compassion means you care genuinely, and you also tell the truth. You help freely, and you also say no when no is the honest answer. You are warm, and you also have standards that you maintain without apology. You consider other people's feelings, and you also consider your own as equally valid and equally worthy of protection. Research from assertiveness training programs conducted across multiple clinical settings consistently shows that learning to express genuine needs, set clear limits, and disagree respectfully does not damage relationships. In the vast majority of cases, it deepens them. Because the person you are in relationship with suddenly has access to someone real. Someone whose yes means yes because their no means no. Someone whose warmth can be trusted because it is genuine rather than compulsory. Someone whose presence adds something real to the relationship rather than simply accommodating whatever the relationship demands. There is one more thing you need to hear, and it is the most important thing in this entire video. The people in your life who genuinely love you do not need you to be endlessly agreeable. They do not need you to always have the right answer for their problems, or to absorb their discomfort, or to make every situation smooth and comfortable. What the people who genuinely love you need is you, the actual you, with your actual opinions, your actual limits, your actual needs, and your actual reactions. Because a relationship with the performance of you is not a relationship with you at all. It is a relationship with a mirror that reflects back whatever someone needs to see. And mirrors do not grow, do not contribute, and do not matter in the way that real people do. Neuroscience has demonstrated through research on social bonding that genuine human connection requires the experience of encountering a separate and authentic other. A person whose inner world is real enough and different enough from your own that being with them actually expands you. You cannot be that person for anyone while you are busy performing endless agreeableness. The kindest thing you can do for the people you love is to stop protecting them from the real you. And the most important thing you can do for yourself is to stop protecting everyone else's comfort at the cost of your own authentic existence. Your niceness is not the problem. The fear driving it is, and fear once seen clearly loses much of its power. Start there.